The Forgotten Guardian. The stars were quiet above Earth, but deep under the ground something old was waiting. For generations, humans had lived without knowing the truth. They built cities, fought wars, and looked at the sky with hope and fear. They never imagined that buried under their soil was a guardian that once defended them, when the galaxy itself had turned against humanity. Long ago, before memory became history, Earth had faced an invasion. The records were hidden, erased by those who wanted people to believe that humans were small and powerless. But the truth was different. During that war, when humanity stood on the edge of extinction, the greatest minds of Earth had built a machine so powerful that it could face entire armadas alone. It was not just a weapon, it was a protector, a guardian. When the war ended, it was put into silence, buried far below mountains, where no one could find it. The centuries passed, humanity forgot, the galaxy forgot. But time does not kill legends. Whispers remained in alien archives, half-burned scrolls and damaged data crystals. The stories spoke of a machine with burning eyes that tore fleets apart with a single strike. Most believed it was only myth. They laughed when the word Earth was spoken. To them, Earth was a backwater planet filled with stubborn creatures who had no true power. They never knew the truth. Then came the signal. It was faint at first, a pulse that moved across the stars. Astronomers on distant worlds noticed it, but they dismissed it as noise. Only the oldest species remembered the frequency. It was the same signal that had been heard thousands of years ago before a fleet had vanished in human space, never to return. That memory was enough to spark fear in the hearts of alien rulers. They told their people nothing, but in secret meetings they whispered, "What if the Guardian is waking again?" On Earth, deep under frozen rock and silent stone, the machine stirred. At first it was only a vibration, too small for humans to notice. Seismographs recorded strange movements beneath the ground, but scientists explained it away as tectonic shifts. No one realized what was truly happening. Only a few old men in government bunkers who had inherited fragments of the truth knew that the time had come. They remembered the hidden files, the sealed orders. If the Guardian wakes, do not stop it. It is humanity's last shield. The ground shook again, this time stronger. Farmers in remote lands looked up from their fields as the soil trembled. Miners, in deep tunnels, heard a distant metallic echo. Children felt the earth move beneath their feet and cried out in fear. No one could explain it. No one could stop it. Above, the galaxy watched. Powerful empires kept their eyes on Earth, curious and suspicious. For decades, they had debated whether to conquer humans or simply use them as cheap labor. But now, their fleets hesitated. Their generals remembered the whispers. They remembered how one warship had been lost centuries ago, shredded by an unknown force. They wondered if the same force was rising again. The Guardian's first light appeared. It was deep under a mountain, where no human eye could see. A soft glow burned in the darkness, red and alive. The machines around it came to life. Systems that had slept for ages began to hum. Massive gears turned, cables shook with energy, and ancient circuits lit up with power. The silent Guardian was no longer silent. In orbit above Earth, satellites recorded bursts of radiation. Scientists were confused, rushing to explain the strange readings. But the truth was clear to those who feared it. The Guardian was awake. Galaxy trembled in silence. An alien council met in a hidden chamber. The elders sat around a black stone table, their faces pale and tense. The humans do not know what they have. One elder whispered. Another answered, "They may not know, but it will still protect them, it always has." The third slammed his hand on the table. "If it rises, we cannot stop it. No fleet can, no army can. We must act before it is too late." But none of them dared to send their fleets near Earth. Fear held them back. On Earth, people carried on with their lives. They did not know that their world was changing. They did not see the giant buried under their feet. Only a small group of leaders sat in silence, watching the readings, feeling the weight of the truth. One of them whispered. The Guardian is not just a machine, it is a promise that humanity will never be slaves. Outside, the night sky was calm, but far below, a metallic heart began to beat again. Its sound was not heard by human ears, but the stars themselves seemed to echo it. The legend had returned. The forgotten Guardian was no longer forgotten, and across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. The galaxy learns the truth. The galaxy was vast, filled with thousands of species and countless worlds, but whispers could move faster than light. The signal that pulsed from Earth had already reached the ears of the old and powerful. At first, the younger races laughed. To them, Earth was small, a world of fragile beings who had only just begun to touch the stars. They believed humans were bold but weak. Yet the oldest empires did not laugh. Their archives carried scars of history, and those scars still bled fear. Long ago, when the stars burned with endless wars, there had been stories of a weapon built by humans, a Guardian, that stood against the strongest fleets. Records were destroyed and the truth was buried, but fragments survived, half-broken data slates, ancient testimonies carved into stone, and whispers passed down by survivors. They told of a machine that did not bow, a machine that fought until whole armadas were turned to ash. Most dismissed it as myth, but now the same signal had returned, carrying the same rhythm, the same power. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, the tension was heavy. Representatives from dozens of species gathered under the great crystal dome. Their voices clashed, rising in fear and disbelief. The humans are awakening something, said a scaled diplomat whose eyes burned yellow. Or it is already awake? Another answered, his voice trembling. They are too primitive to build such a thing, a third protested. It must be an illusion, a trick. But an old archivist stood, his back bent but his gaze sharp. He held up a shattered tablet, its symbols glowing faintly. It is not a trick, he declared. This is the same signal that brought silence to the fleets of the Orvan Dominion 3,000 years ago. My ancestors spoke of a battle no one survived. Ships melted, crews vanished, and the sky itself burned. The only name whispered after was Earth. The chamber fell silent. None dared to speak against memory written in blood. Far away in hidden war rooms, admirals reviewed ancient battle logs. The recordings were blurry, filled with static, but one frame remained clear, a shadow of metal towering above flames, eyes glowing like twin stars. The admirals stared at it in silence, knowing that if the Guardian truly lived again, no fleet could challenge it. Yet not all were afraid. Some saw opportunity. The Kreth Empire, known for its hunger and greed, saw Earth as a chance to prove their strength. Their ruler stood before his war council and said, "If this Guardian exists, we will break it. If humans believe they are safe, we will teach them fear. Their world will fall, and their Guardian will be our trophy." His generals bowed, though in their eyes was doubt. They dared not speak. On Earth, humanity still lived unaware. The Guardian's pulse was hidden from the common people. Governments whispered, but they did not reveal the truth. Satellites recorded strange surges, power levels higher than anything they had ever measured, but the reports were locked away in secret vaults. To the public, earthquakes and lights in the sky were dismissed as natural. But in the silence of bunkers, men and women sat with pale faces, realizing the legends were alive. One young scientist, buried in classified research, stared at the readings with wide eyes. "This cannot be human," she whispered. Her superior leaned forward. "It is not human, it is for humanity." The galaxy held its breath. Some species began to send probes near Earth, trying to see for themselves. The first probe never returned. The second recorded only a blur of light before it was destroyed. By the third attempt, no one dared send more. The Guardian was not only awake, it was watching. Fear became a tide. Merchants avoided Earth's trade routes. Pirates vanished from human space, as if swallowed by shadows. Even species who had mocked humans now spoke their name with caution. The balance of power was shifting, and no one knew what would follow. One alien scholar wrote in his journal, History is not past. It sleeps, waiting to rise. And now, on Earth, history has opened its eyes once more. In the halls of the Galactic Council, arguments raged without end. Some demanded that Earth be destroyed before the Guardian could move. Others begged for peace, believing war would mean extinction. A few voices whispered of alliances, of bowing to humans before it was too late. But no decision was made. Fear chained them all. Meanwhile, deep under the mountain, the Guardian's light grew brighter. Its systems aligned, its weapons hummed, and its silent heart beat louder. It had no voice, but its presence spread across the void, telling the galaxy one truth. Earth was not weak. Earth had never been weak. And as alien rulers tossed in restless sleep, dreaming of fire and ruin, humanity lived unaware of the storm about to come. Farmers tilled their land, children laughed under the stars, and workers built their cities, never knowing that above them the galaxy trembled in fear. The Guardian was awake. The truth was no longer hidden, and the galaxy could not unlearn what it had just remembered. The first strike, the galaxy had not known silence like this in centuries. Trade routes slowed, councils argued, and whispers spread from one star system to the next. The signal from Earth still pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and unbroken, and every time it echoed through the void, rulers tightened their fists in fear. But fear was not enough to stop greed. The Kreth Empire moved first. For generations they had thrived on conquest, turning weaker races into slaves and forcing entire planets to bow. To them, Earth was nothing more than a small world that dared to stand proud. The talk of a Guardian did not frighten them. Instead, it tempted them. If such a machine truly existed, they wanted it for themselves. A prize that could make their empire unstoppable. Their war council gathered in a vast steel chamber. Holomaps glowed above the table, showing Earth's position in the galaxy. Generals in black armor stood tall, their voices sharp. Humans are primitive, one sneered. They do not even rule beyond their own system. They cannot control a Guardian, another added. If it is real, it must be old and weak. We will strike before it wakes fully. The Emperor raised his clawed hand, silencing them. Then it is decided. We send a fleet. Earth will burn and the Guardian will belong to us. Soon 100 warships tore through space, their engines leaving trails of light behind them. They moved with arrogance, broadcasting threats on open channels. People of Earth, their message roared, submit or vanish. The galaxy does not fear myths. On Earth, the warnings arrived too late. Civilian screens flashed with alien symbols, but most humans did not understand them. Panic spread as telescopes revealed shapes in the sky, larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Governments scrambled, armies mobilized, but everyone knew they were powerless. Human technology could not face fleets of this size. Fear gripped the world. But under the mountain, the Guardian stirred fully awake. The ground split open with a deafening crack. Villages near the site collapsed as the earth tore apart. A column of light burst into the night sky, brighter than the sun. From within the mountain rose a giant of metal, its armor black as shadow, its eyes glowing like fire. The Guardian stepped out, each movement shaking the land as if the planet itself carried its weight. In orbit, the Kreth fleet watched in disbelief. The machine was real. Their sensors screamed warnings, recording power levels that no alien ship could match. The admirals hesitated, but the Emperor's command was clear. Attack. The first volley of plasma fire rained down. Blue beams cut through the sky, tearing forests and mountains apart. Cities far away trembled from the shock. Humanity watched in horror, certain that their world was about to be destroyed. Then the Guardian moved. Its chest opened with a deep metallic roar, revealing a core of burning light. In an instant, it released a single beam that tore across the heavens. One Kreth warship vanished, melted into ash before it could even scream. The others panicked, scattering in desperate formation. The Guardian raised its arms, and cannons, older than empires, came alive. With each strike, alien ships exploded like sparks against a storm. On Earth, people stared at the sky. They saw fire and falling wreckage, but they also saw hope. The machine was not attacking them. It was protecting them. For the first time, humanity realized that the legend was not a myth. The Silent Guardian was real, and it had risen for them. In the Galactic Council, live feeds from the Kreth fleet spread like wildfire. Delegates shouted in terror as they watched entire squadrons vanish under the Guardian's fire. No one laughed now. No one doubted. The machine was more than real. It was unstoppable. The Kreth admiral screamed orders, but nothing worked. Missiles shattered before reaching their target. Plasma beams bent away as if the air itself deflected them. The Guardian did not chase them. It did not need to. It simply stood between Earth and the fleet, and that alone was enough. One by one, the Kreth ships fell. Out of 100, only a handful managed to escape, engines burning as they fled into the void. The Emperor's dream of conquest turned into a nightmare of shame. His surviving soldiers returned broken, whispering of glowing eyes that watched them even as they fled. Silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of waiting. It was the silence of fear. Every empire, every council, every ruler in the galaxy now knew the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth was not alone. The Guardian had risen again. On the ground, humanity stood in awe. Soldiers lowered their weapons, citizens cried with relief, and children pointed at the giant silhouette standing in the night. No one understood how it had come to be, or why it had chosen now to awaken, but deep in their hearts they felt something powerful: pride. Above them, the Guardian stood unmoving, its gaze fixed on the stars. It did not celebrate victory. It did not chase the fleeing ships. It simply waited, a silent warning to anyone who would dare to come again. And across the galaxy, rulers trembled. The first strike had ended not with Earth's defeat, but with Earth's rise. The legend was no longer hidden. The forgotten Guardian was now the terror of the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. The fear spreads. The Kreth fleet had been shattered. In a single battle, 100 warships had fallen, their firepower erased as if it was nothing. Survivors limped back to their empire, broken and silent, and their reports spread faster than their ships could travel. Across the galaxy, words repeated again and again: the Guardian is real. Earth is protected. The news struck fear into every throne room and council chamber. No one had expected such power. For centuries, Earth was seen as a world of little consequence, a race still young, still learning. But now that image was gone. What rose in its place was far more dangerous. On the capital world of the Zyran Dominion, the High Regent stood before his generals. His long fingers drummed the steel armrest of his throne as he listened to the news. "You are telling me," he said slowly, "that an ancient machine, a relic of humans, destroyed a full Kreth fleet without taking damage?" The general lowered his eyes. "Yes, Regent. The reports are the same from every witness. The Guardian did not even pursue them. It simply stood guard." The Regent's face turned pale. He waved his hand dismissively. "Seal the archives. No one outside this chamber must know how close we once came to the same fate." But secrets could not hold back fear. Traitors spoke of the battle, smugglers repeated it in whispers, and soon entire populations knew. Civilizations that once mocked humans now looked at them with dread. Some spoke of alliances, others of destruction, but all agreed on one thing: the galaxy had changed. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity struggled to understand. The people had seen fire in the sky, and they had seen alien fleets fall like burning meteors. But the government said little. Officials stood before cameras speaking of defense systems and security measures, but no one truly believed them. Everyone had seen the massive figure rise from the mountain. Everyone had seen the glowing eyes. The world knew that something beyond human hands was protecting them. Children drew pictures of the Guardian in their schools. Artists painted murals of its fiery silhouette. Songs were written in its honor. For the first time in centuries, the people of Earth felt united. They were not small anymore, they were not helpless. They had a guardian, but pride was only one part of the story. In secret chambers, leaders debated in hushed voices. Should we control it? One asked. No, another answered quickly. It does not belong to us. It belongs to all humanity. But what if it turns against us? Silence filled the room. No one wanted to speak that fear aloud. Far above Earth, the Guardian remained still. It floated in orbit now, its massive form a shadow against the stars. It did not attack. It did not move. It only watched. Alien probes that dared to approach were destroyed without warning. Human satellites that drifted near were ignored. The Guardian knew friend from foe. Across the galaxy, fear spread deeper. Old enemies who had fought wars against each other now paused. The name of Earth was spoken even in the darkest corners. Pirate clans abandoned human space entirely, leaving behind broken ships and ruined bases. Slave traders rerouted their paths, avoiding the Sol system like a plague. To challenge humans now was to challenge death itself. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Delegates shouted, their voices echoing off marble walls. Some demanded that Earth be attacked before the Guardian grew stronger. Others cried for peace, begging to negotiate before more fleets were destroyed. The oldest among them, the archivists of Elyon, sat in silence, their eyes full of fear. They knew what the Guardian truly was. They remembered the wars long forgotten, when even the strongest armadas had fled before its fire. One elder finally spoke. Do you not understand? If the Guardian has awakened, it means the humans are threatened. And if they are threatened, the galaxy will burn. The Guardian does not rise without purpose. The chamber grew still. The meaning was clear. Someone, somewhere, had awakened a storm. Back on Earth, life began to change. Farmers looked at the sky differently. Soldiers trained with a new fire in their eyes. Scientists studied the readings of the Guardian, though none could understand its full power. Some said it was a machine built by humans long ago. Others believed it was older than humanity itself, placed there by hands unknown. Whatever the truth, one fact remained. It was here for Earth. In the shadows of space, the surviving Kreth ships limped back to their empire. Their emperor raged, his claws tearing through steel walls, but nothing could erase the truth. His fleet had been broken. His name was stained with failure, and worse than defeat was the fear now in his people. They whispered of Earth as if it were cursed, and many asked if the Empire should bow before it rather than fight again. The Kreth Emperor swore vengeance, but his words rang hollow. His enemies, once afraid of him, now saw weakness. His empire trembled on the edge of collapse, all because of a world he once considered unworthy. And still the Guardian stood. It said nothing, but its silence was louder than any voice. Every empire, every council, every ruler looked at Earth with dread, and every night they asked themselves the same question. If this is only one Guardian, how many more could there be? Fear had spread. It would not fade. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Humanity's warning, the galaxy had watched the fall of the Kreth fleet. They had seen the fire in the sky above Earth, and they had seen the Guardian rise again after centuries of silence. Fear spread to every corner of space, but fear was not enough. The rulers wanted answers. They wanted to know why this machine had returned, why it chose now to awaken. Alien spies hid in the shadows of Earth's orbit, but none returned. Drones and probes sent by empires were destroyed the moment they crossed too close. The Guardian allowed no trespass. It hovered above Earth like a dark star, unmoving, unblinking, its glowing eyes watching the galaxy. It did not chase enemies. It did not roar in victory. Its silence was more terrifying than any weapon. On Earth, humanity changed. People no longer felt weak or small. They had seen what stood for them, and their voices carried new pride. We are not alone, they said. We are protected. Governments, once divided, now united under the shadow of the Guardian. Soldiers trained harder. Scientists worked day and night, trying to understand the energy pulses that came from the giant machine. But none could explain it. One young researcher whispered to her commander, "It does not move like a machine. It moves like it knows, like it remembers." And she was right. The Guardian was not only metal and fire, it carried something deeper, something that remembered the wars of the past, something that had seen humanity bleed and rise again. It had not returned by accident. It had returned with purpose. The Galactic Council finally broke its silence. In a massive hall filled with representatives of 100 species, voices rose in panic. Some demanded immediate war, others begged for peace. But then, before any decision could be made, every screen in the chamber flickered. Lights dimmed, and a shadow filled the air. The council froze. It was the Guardian. Its burning eyes glowed across the projection, its figure towering above the council, as if the stars themselves bowed to it. For the first time, the galaxy heard its voice. It was not human, it was not machine. It was something between, something vast and ancient. Its voice shook like thunder. "You have tested Earth." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate trembled. "You brought war to our soil. You thought humanity weak. You thought us slaves. You were wrong." The words struck deeper than any weapon. The delegates lowered their eyes, their voices gone. "We do not seek conquest, we do not seek chains, but if you strike at Earth again, if you raise your hand against humanity, you will face me. And I do not forgive. I do not forget." The chamber shook as the Guardian's image leaned forward, its fiery gaze burning across every screen, every system, every ship in the galaxy. Earth will never kneel. The message ended. Silence filled the hall, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of submission. Every ruler in the galaxy knew the truth. Earth was not to be touched. Humanity was not to be caged. To challenge them now was to face extinction. Back on Earth, the people heard the message too. They stood in streets and homes, their faces lit by the broadcast. Pride filled their hearts. For the first time, the galaxy had listened to them, not with mockery, but with fear. The Guardian had spoken for them, and its words had become their oath. Above the world, the Guardian remained in orbit, silent once more. Its eyes glowed faintly, scanning the stars. It did not move, but its presence was enough. Everyone who looked at Earth now saw not just a small blue planet, they saw a warning. The galaxy trembled, but Earth stood tall. The forgotten Guardian had risen again, and the age of humanity had truly begun.